Let's talk about the safeties on the back end of this Ducks defense. You know, the last couple of years, there have been incremental improvements, maybe smaller improvements, but if that Rose Bowl on January 1st proved us anything, it proved that this safety room got a long way to go to be considered great, got a long way to go to be considered elite, to be able to go toe-to-toe with some of the best passing attacks in college football. That's what not only the Rose Bowl really has taught us, but the last 2 years has taught us, is when Oregon has gone head-to-head with some of these great receivers and these great passing attacks. Some of these guys on the back end, they've gotten turned around, especially in the Rose Bowl. They got turned around. Now, in their defense, a lot of people in that situation would have gotten turned around against Jeremiah Smith on that day in Pasadena, and Emeka Ibuka and Carnell Tate and all those guys. It was just a perfect storm on that specific day, but it certainly did shine a spotlight. And I think 2 years ago's performance, that certainly did shine a spotlight. Is like, we need to get better in the defensive backfield. We need to get better at safety. We need to get better at the last line of defense. And as I'm going to highlight throughout this position preview, I believe that the safety room is as good as it's been during the Dan Lanning era. It's as good as it's been in a hot minute in Eugene, Oregon, and that provides a sense of optimism when the Ducks face off against some of these better passing attacks within this 2025 season. Now, they lost both of their starting safeties from last season. Kobe Savage was in there. It was his last year of eligibility coming over from Kansas State. Tysheem Johnson is gone as well. He runs out of eligibility. Both those guys were number 2 and number 3 tacklers on this team. So you're losing guys that could certainly come up in the play and make some stops. Tyler Turner was in the recruiting class a couple of years back. He ends up entering the portal, and he transfers out to Baylor. Now, who comes into this program? Of course, the big addition, Dillon Thieneman from Purdue. But we'll talk more about him and in more detail here in just a little bit. But I think it's been well documented just how big of an addition he is to the safety room. And then true freshman 5-star Trey McNutt. Those are a couple of pretty good additions, certainly at the safety position. So all of that being considered, what does this room look like? You've got Dillon Thieneman, the true junior. Kingston Lopa is a redshirt freshman. Aaron Flowers is a redshirt freshman. Peyton Woodyard is a sophomore. Trey McNutt is a true freshman. And Cruz Rushing, the brother of Elijah Rushing, rounds things off as a redshirt freshman. Of course, the key when you talk about the safeties this year, it's Dillon Thieneman. It's Dillon Thieneman. I mean, just what this guy has done in 2 years at Purdue has been outstanding. Back-to-back seasons with over 100 tackles. He was a third-team All-American, not a freshman All-American. He was first team, certainly, when it came to that, but a third-team All-American across the board when it comes to his freshman season. He also had 6 interceptions that year. He's been an All-Big Ten player as well. He's highly regarded as maybe a future first-round NFL safety. Outside of Caleb Downs, he might be the best safety in all of college football. This is a huge addition, right? We set this thing up talking about how the Ducks have bowed out the last 2 seasons. Getting a guy at that talent level was extremely important, I think, for this Ducks secondary. And I think one thing, we talked about his talent and what exactly it can do. And Purdue really leaned on him to do a lot. And we'll talk maybe more about what Oregon is going to expect him or maybe not expect him to do in just a minute. But his leadership, I think, is going to be paramount. We're going to be talking about the youth here in just a minute. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see, and I said it already, obviously for those on podcast as well, all of the youth within the rest of the room. Like, there are guys that have not started at safety. There are guys that haven't played a ton of games at the college level. And you hear Dillon Thieneman, and I mean, he's coming in there. He's the first one there. He's the last one to leave. And you have guys during these spring press conferences that are saying he's showing us what it truly means to be a professional, how to prepare, how to approach the day, how to be a great player, how to get the most out of your talent. Having a guy like that in that room with these younger players, I believe, is going to pay a lot of dividends, especially when we get to the second half of the year, when some of these guys kind of get their feet solid within the spots that they're going to be in. But yeah, I think, the talent is obviously outstanding, but having the leadership and setting the example, It's been something that's been talked about, and I think it's going to play a huge role, especially with this younger talent within this room as well for Dillon Thieneman. And it's funny because Purdue, he did everything. He did everything. A lot of times he was essentially another linebacker, but I think playing around much better talent and being in a much better defense, we're going to truly see Dillon Thieneman, the safety. I think Tosh is going to, I know I preface this by saying, hey, the leading tackler or the second leading tackler and third leading tackler last year were safeties, but they had nowhere near 100 tackles. Nowhere near 100 tackles. I think Tosh and Chris Hampton and the defensive coaching staff is going to say, hey, we need you to be great in the deep third. That's where we need you to be great. Yes, we certainly want you to come up and do what you do in terms of playing the run, taking great angles and making those types of tackles up, near the first two levels of the defense. But I think the important thing for Thieneman this year is he needs to be that last line of defense that where this Oregon team just does not get beat deep consistently. He needs to be that reliable presence this year for Oregon. He said it in an interview, I believe it was Ducks of a Feather, or maybe it was his press conference, I can't remember, but it's a very different scheme. And with that, I think there's going to be very different expectations for Dillon Thieneman at safety. But having seen him the last couple of years following the Big Ten, this is a big-time addition, especially considering where Oregon was at talent-wise the last couple of years and the results that they've had thus the last couple of years as well. And fall camp battles. We've been talking about it here for the last couple of weeks. This is, I think, maybe one of the bigger battles of fall camp. Who is going to be the other starting safety beside Dillon Thieneman? And the names on this list, most of them, I think there's 4 that are going to be battling out here. I think it's going to be Kingston Lopa, Aaron Flowers, Peyton Woodyard, and Trey McNutt. Right now, I tend to favor Kingston Lopa. This staff put some trust in Lopa during the Big Ten championship game when he was asked to go out there in situations to be able to match up against Tyler Warren. We know the size that is Tyler Warren and the weapon that he was. Lopa at 6'5", 190 pounds. I think it was like 7 defensive snaps last year in that game, but he did a good job in that game. Tyler Warren, it was the run game, it was other parts. Warren didn't have an absolutely gigantic game in the Big Ten championship game. So a little bit of credit certainly is to be given to Lopa, but his height, his length, he is probably the leader in the clubhouse, certainly right now. I think a lot of people are really giving off that vibe within the building right now. Aaron Flowers, you saw him lay the lumber a little bit a couple of times during that spring game. I'm excited about what he can be, certainly as a tackler and coming up and really making an impact with his shoulders and all of that. Peyton Woodyard, I wasn't as impressed with during the spring game, but it's a spring game. It's just one smaller sample size as well. But here's the thing about Woodyard. He played in all 14 games last year. No, mostly special teams, but did play 58 snaps on the defensive side of the football. And then you got to factor in freshman Trey McNutt. I've said before, it's going to be hard to keep Naeem Offord and Trey McNutt off of the football field this year. That is going to be a extremely fun battle to be able to follow, I think, during fall camp. And you could realistically... You could probably talk me into some might be more of a reach than others. Let me just put it that way. But there might be parts of each player's game where you could talk me into that player winning this battle and being the starter. I think there's good depth in this room. I think there's really good talent in this room. But once again, we circle back to the youth. How fast are these guys going to go up? Which leads me to my last point. This position absolutely cannot be a liability. And that's kind of been an overarching point as I've done this position preview with the safeties right now. Thieneman is as good of a player as they've had in a long time. I've mentioned that. But just how fast are these young guys going to grow up? Is that other safety spot going to be a weak point in the defense? Or are these redshirt freshmen, or are these young players, as this season goes along, are they going to step up and mature into this role? And truly we're going to see just how much more talented these guys are than some of these other plug and play guys that we've seen the last couple of years. This needs to be a part of the defense that cannot be beat in some of the biggest situations against the pass this season. I have confidence that they're going to be better, but especially with the young players, they need to go out and prove it. This is an all-new group. It's an all-new group that can be exciting. That can also be a little bit concerning because it is a little bit of an unknown. But either way, I think we're going to see some improvement this year at the safety position.